Hi, everybody. Welcome to Woo Woo Wednesday. I am, as you know, fairly new at doing this YouTube thing, and what I've been forgetting to mention on these YouTube videos that I've been doing is the kind of technical stuff. Like and subscribe if you wouldn't mind. Apparently, that's an important thing. And also, if you need to contact me for a reading or a session, my website is whispersofjoy.net. You can have a blog. I have all kinds of information on my website that you can check out. And I just wanted to get that kind of technical stuff out of the way before I get started because I forget when I get to the end. I'm like, okay, bye, and never mention those important things. So I appreciate you all. If you're coming back every week to check my messages out, if you would like and subscribe and even share, that helps me out. Okay, so let's just put all that aside and what's the message for today? Today, Spirit wants to talk about what dealing with disappointment. So the card that comes up for that, let me get that card up here, is the Three of Swords. Let's pull back a little bit so you can see it. It's always hard to get a good picture of it. But as you can see, it doesn't look too good. It looks like a heart, and three swords are poking through that heart there. So it's kind of a difficult card, if you can imagine. There's no sugarcoating that card. It's a card of disappointment. It's a card of heartbreak. Frequently in the tarot, that's the card that you get maybe if you find out your lover's having an affair. It could represent like an actual heart attack. But sometimes it just represents disappointment. We all have periods of time in our life when we're disappointed. Something that we hoped for didn't happen, or somebody that we believed in let us down. And, you know, what happens when you have periods of disappointment in your life? The reason I'm sharing this message is Spirit likes to talk to me through movies and TV shows sometimes. And my husband has been watching an old series that was on, I think about maybe 15 years ago on a cable channel. And I won't mention the name of the series because I don't know how that works. Like, you know, if I say the name of the series, you know, I don't know. Should I or shouldn't I? I don't know if that's a thing. Anyway, it was about a organized crime. And it was a very highly acclaimed series in this premium cable channel. So if I named it, everybody would know what it was. But anyway, he's been watching old episodes of that. And the one episode that I happened to be watching with him when I got this message from Spirit was the main character in the show. He's like a mob boss kind of. And he had been mentoring his nephew to eventually take his place, you know, if anything ever happened to him. And the nephew, on the other hand, had this kind of side gig where he liked to write movie scripts. And he had created this movie based on his life experiences, even though I don't know for sure if he recognized that it was from life experience. But anyway, he created this movie. They had the opening and everybody went, including the mob boss and everybody in the family, all went to see this movie. And the mob boss didn't recognize that the movie was basically about his relationship between him and his nephew. And only in the movie, the nephew's character actually ends up killing the mob boss. But here, you know, he watched the movie, he thought it was great. He was like, oh, that's wonderful. You're going to be known forever. And you're going to be famous, blah, blah, blah. Didn't even recognize that there was maybe a hint of problem between him and his nephew. And so what happened was the mob boss's wife says, oh my gosh, this is about you and so. And he finally recognized it. Here he spent all this time kind of mentoring him and nurturing him and grooming him to eventually take over as leader of this organized crime. And apparently there's a problem. And he was a little bit aware of it, but not really. On the other hand, the nephew who had written the movie script, he thought that he just thought it up out of the blue, that it had nothing to do with real life. And until somebody pointed that out to him. And so what happens is, because of the movie, these people realize that there's a problem between each other when they weren't really admitting it. And so they were disappointed with each other. They were disappointed at the relationship, that it hadn't worked out exactly the way they had hoped. And so, I was just watching the movie, and no big deal. And after it was over, I decided to go for a walk. And I always like to get messages from Spirit when I'm out going for a walk. And so I'm going out, I'm walking, and Spirit showed up and said, how many times do people realize through outside circumstances that they're disappointed by the way life has turned out? They put time and effort into a significant portion of their life, maybe a relationship, maybe a business, a career. Maybe they've put a lot of work into life turning out a specific way. And then through an unexpected event, or, I'm not going to say that you're going to watch a movie of your life and realize that your life isn't exactly what you thought, even though sometimes that happens. I've gotten a lot of messages through movies that made me realize that things weren't exactly the way I thought. But anyway, what happens when you realize that the vision that you had of your life, or somebody else's life, or the way you thought life was going, doesn't turn out the way you wanted it to? What do? A lot of times these things happen unexpectedly. A lot of times they happen out of the blue, and they come as a jolt to us. They come and surprise us in a way. And, all of a sudden we realize, hey, I thought life was going along like this, and it really was going along like that. And it didn't turn out the way I thought. And we all have experiences like that. We all have times when our life does not turn out the way we thought. And sometimes it comes as a surprise. Sometimes we kind of have hints that things are happening in a certain way. And then, even then, it still jolts us and kind of forces us to re-examine our lives or other people's lives. And so, what do we do? What do we do when those things happen? So I want to talk a little bit about today. What do you do when something happens out of the blue, when truth slaps you in the face, and you are faced with the reality that your perceptions of life, of a person, a relationship that you might have, is not exactly the way you thought? Because it hurts. It hurts. It's very disappointing. If you think about this card, if this card comes up for you, let me try to get it further back so you can see it a little better. Disappointment, heartbreak. What does that mean? How do you navigate that? How do you navigate realizing that your life is not exactly the way you perceived it was? What do you do? So the first thing that obviously you need to realize is that you can't heal overnight. You can't. You have to acknowledge your disappointment. You have to acknowledge your hurt. Maybe it's a person that you looked up to. Maybe it's, a religious figure or a political figure that you had put all of your eggs in this basket and said, this is truth. This is who I am. This is my identity. I identify with this belief system, or I identify with this political party. I identify with whatever, my life, a relationship, a marriage, a career. And then you find out that maybe certain aspects of that weren't exactly true. Somebody has let you down. It might be somebody you're intimately acquainted with, or it might be somebody that you've just looked up to. It might be somebody that you have placed a lot of your life, blood into, that you have really, you've really wrapped your identity around this thing. And what happens? So obviously there's a period of having to reinvent yourself. there's a period of grief, and it's okay to allow yourself time to grieve. And it's really important that you do that. It's important that you acknowledge how you're feeling and recognize that a lot of things that have transpired, and you have put a lot of belief and work into creating your life in a specific way, and then to find out that it wasn't exactly that way, that's hurtful. And you have to be okay with allowing yourself time to grieve. You have to. Now, if the hurt or the disappointment or the tragedy, whatever it is, if it involves somebody in your life, an intimate person in your life, or maybe even a boss, or somebody who you can see and touch and talk to, you should really decide whether it's a good idea to address that person. If it's somebody who is more vague, more, I'm going to say like a political party or a religious party, that, you know, you've put all of your belief in, and then you find out that what you believed wasn't exactly true, it's harder to do that, but you could journal about it. And if it's somebody in your life, somebody intimate in your life, somebody close to you, and you don't feel comfortable really confronting that person, then write it down, journal about it. You could even get in your car. I've done this before. And as you're driving down the road, you're talking to the person as if they're in the car with you. Or if you don't want to do it while you're driving because you're going to get upset, I don't want you to have any accidents. Do it when you're at home and there's nobody there. And just get into kind of a meditative state and visualize that person as if they were in the room with you, and just tell them how you feel. It's really important to allow yourself to vocalize your grief. Allow yourself to vocalize your disappointment. Talk about it. Yell and scream if you have to, and cry, but whatever. You've got to get it out of your body, because all of those things that we internalize are the things that end up making us sick, or that we can't get past. They become energetic intrusions in our body, and those things are the ones that we never find closure for. You know, I talk to a lot of people on the other side, and the ones that are living with regret are not the ones who necessarily didn't do anything wrong. It's the ones who didn't find closure for the things that disappointed them, for the hurts that they experienced. I told you before about, you know, my mom, that she really put all of her eggs in this basket of religion, that she thought Jesus would have healed her cancer, and then she died of cancer. And so she was, you know, I had a dream, and she was very upset about that. She thought, you know, Jesus was going to heal her, and he didn't. She died. And so that's a big disappointment. It's a big thing that even when somebody passes over and they die, if they haven't resolved those disappointments while they're alive, they're still carrying them on the other side. They're still holding on to those regrets, the anger, the emotions. And, you know, the living can connect with the dead and help them to work through those things. And yet, for, you know, say, for example, if my mom would have died and she would have resolved herself to that and said, well, you know, I guess, I don't know. I don't know. And then she would have been okay with that and crossed over, then she probably would have had an easier time. But that happens a lot. That happens a lot. It's really important, not necessarily to just say, oh, well, you know, I'm not in control of my life and fate, and this is the way it is. That's not exactly what I'm saying. I'm just saying the things that hurt you, that wound you, that disappoint you, it's really important for you to get resolution to those things. And if you die without getting that resolution, then it's still important to get the resolution. And so We can either fix it before we die or we can fix it after we die. There's this period of time on the other side, and it's called the resolution phase. And that's when a soul passes and they get to resolve their life. In the Bible, it's called I think it's called the judgment seat or whatever, when you stand before God or Jesus and that your life goes before you and you get to resolve those things. And in other belief systems, it's called something different. I like to call it the resolution stage. So when you pass, you go through the resolution stage where you resolve all the parts of your life. It's better to do it when you're alive. And so it's really important to resolve those things. And it's easier when they happen, when they first happen, because sometimes if we don't resolve them and they become lodged in our energy body, and then time goes on, we might even forget. But just because we forget about something doesn't mean that it resolved itself or it healed. We might, forget, but it doesn't mean that it's healed until we address it, until we communicate and really heal those disappointments. We can't move on to the next thing. So that's really important. The resolution stage is really important. And let me just say that we all go through disappointments, and it's okay to be angry. It's okay to say, even to a belief system or a higher power. I remember I was really mad at God at one point. I was mad. and I don't think that it took me a long time to admit that I was mad. And, years and years went on, and finally, I had this conversation with Jesus, and he came to me and we kind of resolved our differences because, you don't want to admit you're mad at Jesus. That's just not something that most people want to admit. But there comes a time when I had to resolve those issues, and I had to, we had to work out my disappointments. And so it's okay to be disappointed in something that you believed in. It's okay to be disappointed when life doesn't turn out your way, but let yourself grieve and work on resolving those things. And then the most important part, though, is then accepting. Accept yourself with the reality of what you're living. Accept the other person if it's a person that's disappointed you. Accept what's happened and forgive if you can. But if you can just at least be willing to forgive, and be willing to forgive yourself, because maybe it was your fault or you perceive that it was your fault. Be willing to accept, be willing to forgive, be willing to communicate, and allow yourself the time to heal. Okay? So I hope this has helped. This is kind of a short version of a longer thought process that I've had about healing from disappointment. If you'd like to do a little more in-depth, I can help you with that. I do private sessions. My website is whispersofjoy.net. I also have a blog. One of my blogs, I talk about this, and the name of the blog is What Happens When You, what is the name of it? Healing from a Difficult Truth, I think is what I called it. Something like that. Anyway, check out my blog on my website, whispersofjoy.net. Be sure and like and subscribe if you liked what you saw today or heard today. And let's just heal. Let's heal our hearts. Let's heal each other. And so that we can move on. Because the things that we don't heal from are the things that hold us back from our best life, from our sense of well-being. And that's what we're here for. We're here to enjoy life, to accept the things that we can't change, and move on from there. So I will see you next week. Be blessed and have a great day.